Hello and welcome to the Diplomat. This is where the video meetings were held for the separated family in South and North Korea until 2007. As you can see here, the wall is filled with the post longing for the next reunion to take place as soon as possible. Commemorating the event, today we are going to meet Signe Poulsen, the representative of the Seoul office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, who supported the resumption of family reunion on the humanitarian grounds. Before we meet her, let's take a glimpse of the family reunion event.
An estimated 10 million Korean people are believed to have been separated from their families during the 1950-53 Korean War. They're victims of the decades-long division of Korea, yet reunions have been rare, bringing together only about 23,000 people. After nearly 3 years, a fresh round of reunions has been organized. In 2 sessions, about 500 separated family members were given the chance to meet their long-lost relatives at this year's event held at the North's Mount Kumgang resort from August 20th to the 26th. They embraced one another with joy, and many cried to the point of being unable to speak for several minutes. Lee Kum-sam, 92 years old, hugged the son she lost while her family fled the north when he was only 4. (89-year-old Yu Kwan-sik also met his daughter for the very first time.
아버지, 우리 할머니. 할머니. 기억나세요?
These brief meetings are likely to be the last time they see each other. Today, there are about 56,000 members of divided families in the South, but only 89 of them were lucky enough to be reunited with their kin across the border this time. That's why many people are pressing for these meetings to be more frequent and for them to be organized as a humanitarian program regardless of the political and military situation. One such person is Signe Poulsen, representative of the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights in Seoul. She's also devoted to combating human rights violations in the North and raising awareness of the issue. Let's meet her to commemorate this year's reunions and to talk about peace and human rights.
Hello, Ms. Paulsen. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So the war-separated families reunited for the temporary reunions, I believe, for the first time since the last round of meeting in 2015. How do you feel about that?
Well, we feel that, or I feel that it's a very positive development and of course one that our office would welcome. Having said that, it's of course, like you mentioned, the first time in 3 years, so we would always hope that such reunions would happen more frequently,
right.
That more people could be involved, and also that contact could be sustained over a longer period so that they become not just one-off temporary reunions, but more
right.
long-term.
Right. Then what do you think this reunion event symbolizes? Does it mean the ties between the two Koreas have been improved?
In a sense, yes, it does. And what we've seen in the past has been that at times where relations between the two Koreas have been better, such reunion events have taken place more frequently and seem to have been happening more regularly.
Right.
And as tensions have increased, sometimes the reunion cycle has suffered as a result.
Right.
And that, of course, is quite tragic for the individuals whom that affects.
Right.
So hopefully I mean, in a way, with human rights and with these reunion effects, it's exactly when tensions are the highest that we need this commitment to reunions and to a range of other rights to be respected as well. And they simply do not have time to wait for relations to be at a stage where they facilitate such reunions. Instead, these reunions, which are based on basic humanitarian and human rights principles, must be allowed to continue regularly, and also so that people have some kind of hope and security that they will be able to meet with their loved ones.
And also there are many insist that the reunion should be a more regular based events rather than a sporadic or just sometime event, regardless of the political or military situation. Why are they insisting on that?
I think when it comes to family reunion, it's a thing perhaps as human beings we can all relate to. We all have families, relatives that we love and hold dear, and it's. I don't think any of us who haven't experienced it can imagine what it's like to be separated, but certainly the thought of only being able to see your sister or brother or father or son on one occasion for a very short period with cameras, and depending on whether you win in some kind of process that is not entirely clear, is of course grossly unsatisfactory. At the same time, it is very good that these processes are taking place because it's a first step, as I said. But I do think it's something we can all relate to on a very human level, and so this insistence that they continue is also, I think, quite one that appeals quite broadly.
And I also saw one interview of a gentleman who said he's gonna meet his daughter, and they were separated when his daughter was only 3 years old, but now his daughter became 71 years old. Do you know any other story that we can relate it to his situation?
I mean, I know at the last reunion event there was a 90-year-old gentleman who met with his son, who was in his late 60s at the time, I believe. And you know, it's heartbreaking, isn't it?
It is.
Because on the one hand, they will have an opportunity to meet and reunite for a short period, and that's very good. On the other hand, we've heard people talk about a second separation, which is the great sadness they feel after the conclusion of these events, when there is no opportunity to follow up.
Right.
So what we are also proposing is again a much more sustained effort, where you, for example, would allow a postal service between these families, or telephone calls, or a place where they can meet and spend more time together in a setting that's not so formalized or so short term. So these are all possibilities that exist, and in a way it's incredible with all our sophisticated political theories and technology and everything else. We cannot bring siblings who are living only a few hundred kilometers apart together. I mean, this is merely a matter of political will, not of anything else. And as human beings, that we cannot solve this problem is tragic.
Right. There are about 56,000 were separated family, but most of them were not given a chance to meet their family members at this time. Therefore, we met up with the remaining members to hear about their longing story. Let's meet with them.
네, 선생님,
네.
어머님.
네. 주변에 좋은 일을 계속 하셨죠. 우리가 좋은 일을 해야 또 누군가가 좋은 일을 내 동생한테 하지 않을까 이렇게 생각을 하셔가지고 항상 주변 사람을 돕고 부럽다 하는 생각, 부럽다 하는 생각이죠. 그 이산가족의 이번에라도 매병 너무 소수 인원이지만 만나는 사람만큼은 너무나 행복하고 너무나 부러울 것 같아요. 사실 이런 말 하는데도 사실 조금 저도 가슴이 그냥 약간 떨리는데 그 사람들은 오죽하겠어요. 서로 그 상황이 된다면 서로 교류 초청하고 할 수 있는 그러한 부분 우리의 정부가 또 북한의 정부가 반드시 해주시기를 바라겠습니다.
그때 막내 동생이 4살이었어요. 걔를 안아주고 곧 온다고 했는데 46년생이니까 벌써 70 넘었어. 너무나 가슴 아프네. 소중한 3일입니다. 그거 얼마나 귀합니까? 또 그것이 하나의 모멘텀이 되어서 앞으로 또 연락할 수도 있겠고 하니까 이것을 위해서 우리 국민들의 성원이 들어갔습니다. 앞으로 또 해서 상시적 대통령이 말한 것처럼 상시적으로 만날 수 있는 이러한 제도도 했으면 되지 않겠느냐 이런 생각도 나고 앞으로 좋은 세월이 오리라고 나는 기대하고 있다. 그러니까 그때까지 힘들더라도 살아남아 주게. 그러면 그때 우리가 만나면은 내가 모든 힘을 다해서 우리 집안을 다시 일으키고 이렇게 하자고 생각한다.
Ms. Paulsen, how do you feel meeting separated families who are longing for their reunions?
Well, I mean, I feel hope that as Korean society, as international society, as a global community that is becoming more sensitive and more understanding of human rights, that we will find a solution to this. And hopefully we can find it soon before it's too late for some of these people. And so very concrete things that can happen could be things like I said before, a postal service, or even stay for longer periods with their families if that were to be possible. But also other events that could be meaningful on the Korean Peninsula, such as commemorations, joint commemorations, visits to hometowns if the relatives are no longer around. Ancestors' places are often important. So there are a range of things that could be done and that can probably best be, all of these different initiatives should be done in consultations with those families themselves, and really taking into account what their wishes are and what their needs are and what is possible. So these are just a few broad ideas, but I'm sure many of them are already being considered. So these are some of the things I think need to be happening much more.
I see. You've been carrying out an array of activities to improve and raise awareness of human rights issues in North Korea. How bad is the situation in North Korea?
So, I mean, we've been monitoring the human rights situation in North Korea since mid-2015. And it has its own challenges, of course, one of them being that we don't have direct access to North Korea. But from what we've learned, including by talking to people who've recently left North Korea, is that there are, and there remains a lot of very serious violations in North Korea. They include, and this is relevant to the situation of separated families, they include severe restrictions on freedom of expression, of association, freedom of the right to movement and also to leave the country and travel. And then we have also some very serious areas of violations, and that includes the violations we see within the ordinary and political prison system. So the situation, I would say, is a challenging one. On top of that, there's a very challenging economic and humanitarian situation, which is observed, among others, by the UN agencies that work inside North Korea and who are trying to deliver humanitarian assistance. So there are these are the different aspects of human rights violations that we continue to observe in North Korea.
Right. The tone of relations between South Korea and North Korea has been greatly improved. However, there are some criticism about South Korea government has been overlooking the human rights issue in North Korea. What's your thought about that criticism?
Well, my thought is that when you start a process of talks, it's important to include human rights from the very outset, because it's difficult to see how a solution or how a long-term and sustainable peace could be maintained without improving the human rights situation in North Korea. And I think, after all, when we are talking about improving the human rights situation in North Korea, it has to be about improving the situation for the most vulnerable, not, just a political nicety. It has to be really, how would a peace process or how would a talks process improve the situation for the woman who's toiling in the farm, or the man who's laboring on the streets. And I think for a process to have any meaning, you need, of course, a certain level of economic development to reach those people, and hand in hand with that, empowerment so that they can live a life in dignity. So I think actually including human rights is a very important aspect of any kind of interaction with North Korea.
You've always stressed that peace, security, and human rights go hand in hand. What is your belief behind that?
Well, this is something, it's not something I came up with. It's something that was recognized by the United Nations from the very outset. I suppose when we talk about this, what we think is that well, first of all, when we talk about security, it's certainly the case that war and conflict undermines both development and human rights very, very seriously. But also the other way around, that respect for human rights and rule of law can help build a society where people don't feel disenfranchised, where development is fair and possible because everyone can contribute on an equal basis without discrimination. And so that may actually decrease the chance for conflict, hence increasing security. So it's almost like you build all three of them upwards, hand in hand. You can't leave one out because it will undermine in the long term progress in the other areas.
I see. Now let's talk about the Seoul office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. The office was opened in 2015. What has the office devoted to the most since then?
Well, our mandate that we were given in 2015 and which continues to this day is threefold. We monitor the human rights situation in North Korea with a view to accountability for grave violations of human rights. We also raise awareness based on the monitoring and other forums of the situation of human rights in North Korea. And then we work together with civil society and governments to raise awareness of human rights and to build capacity on implementing human rights reform or changes more broadly. So those are the three areas we've worked on so far.
I see. Then what kind of challenges has the office faced in its effort to improve North Korea's human rights issues?
I think one challenge is for sure the lack of access we have to North Korea.
Right.
First of all, because it makes monitoring limited, although certain things we do have very good information on. we also feel that there are many things we could understand better if we had access. And then another challenge I think that's been particularly relevant over the past 3 years is this shift in the security situation and how, in particular, the military developments in the north has, in a way, seemed to override or take a lot of the space of a lot of other discussions. So it's been very central to many discussions. And so it's important to keep human rights on the agenda and to make the point that regardless if we are in a time of tensions or if we are in a time of more rapprochement and better relations, human rights is a constant throughout those, and that's not something that changes with a better or worse security climate. It's something we must stay true to at all times.
I see. Can you tell us your and your office's plans for the future?
So in the future, our office plans to continue our work. We've had this year the privilege to have a little bit more emphasis on accountability and working towards that was a mandate given to us by the Human Rights Council in 2017. So we'll be reporting on that in next March. We are also working with civil society organizations towards a universal periodic review of North Korea, which will also happen in early 2019. It's a UN process through which every member state has their human rights record reviewed every 4 years. And so the North Korean review is coming up, which will be very interesting, I think, for everyone. And North Korea indeed has participated in this process in the past. Then those are some of the main things we're working on at the moment.
I see. Before we wrap up the interview, is there anything that you would like to say to our viewers to raise awareness of human rights issue in North Korea?
When it comes to human rights in North Korea, I think keeping at the focus the most marginalized and those who need human rights the most is really important. I think many times we tend to get pictures that are from a certain group or a certain class, but really when we talk about human rights, it's about something that can benefit everyone, whether it's being able to move around the country or externally, whether it's about having access to basic information that we all need, or enough food, or access to education. So the very fundamentals, and I think we often forget these very basic things when we talk about North Korea. So my hope is that we can continue this process of talks and through that really engage with North Korea to improve the human rights situation. Because ultimately, human rights has to also come from inside. It's not something we can impose.
Yeah, right. Ms. Paulsen, thank you very much for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. But it was lucky. And then immediately before I was here, I was in Papua New Guinea. And I mean, I liked being there. It was really good. But yeah, it's also nice to be in South Korea. We're seeing people being able, after decades, to reunite with their relatives. At the same time, I very much hope that this is a process that will continue, that will pick up in speed and that will be broadened so that families and individuals are able to maintain contact more permanently and more frequently and in a more sustainable way. Human rights are the building block or the foundation, I think, of peace and security on the Korean Peninsula, but also worldwide. They are what allows people to live in dignity and peace and to be able to fulfill their full potential as individuals and live their dreams and wishes. And that's why human rights are so important to every single individual.